Welcome back. Well, the Minister of Transport, Ben Martis, also came under fire from opposition benches with regard to budgeting, construction and maintenance of roads leading to Nkandla village. In response to a question from Ian Ollis of the DA, Minister Ben Martins said the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Department of Transport is responsible for budgeting, planning design, construction, upgrade and maintenance of roads under its jurisdiction. Mr. Ollis and MPs from opposition benches had follow-up questions to the Minister of Transport.
Minister, you know, we're all quite sure that the roads to Nkandla are paved with good intentions. Our problem is, however, why those roads were prioritized when there are many other roads in South Africa and in KZN that have not been upgraded. My colleague sitting here, for example, lives in Ventersdorp, and the roads there are in a shocking condition, and we don't see the department rushing there to resurface those roads. There are roads all over KZN where children have to cross rivers because the bridge hasn't been built. But those roads are not prioritized, and yet the minister stands here today and tells us he will not investigate what KZN used to prioritize the roads to the doorstep of the president's private home. Will the minister tell us why he won't even investigate why those roads to Nkandla were built?
We have a structure that's composed of the ministry at the national level and also MECs at a provincial level. 2 months ago, we had a meeting with the MECs from the 9 provinces, and they laid out their own priorities. As I said when I began, it's a provincial competence. They decide on their priority projects. Thank you.
Given that security measures at the national security point close by already include a security bunker, and bulletproof windows and a helipad, I want to know, why was it necessary to also upgrade roads leading to this national security point? Was it part of the security measures that already in place there?
Our priority as government is to ensure that there's infrastructure development throughout the country. That means in all our provinces. And the upgrades with regard to the roads in KwaZulu-Natal, it's part and parcel of that program.
All of us are not stupid. It's obvious to everybody. Why is this road being prioritized? Is the message you are sending that all the rural areas must first have a president or a minister for them to get a road properly developed? Particularly because the impression I have is that for you to prioritize, you roll the dice, and whatever comes, that's where you prioritize.
Speaker, facts are facts, and facts are stubborn things. What we have to remember, we have a constitutional democracy, and there are spheres of government: national, provincial, and local government. In terms of the prescripts of the Constitution, provincial governments have got responsibilities, and their programs are carried out in terms of the Constitution. Thank you.
I just want to find out from the minister if there is any conditional grant given by his department to upgrade roads in KwaZulu-Natal generally and in Nkandla in particular.
None.
Well, a debate on the current crisis in the mining industry and the detrimental effects it has on the South African economy was earlier this week introduced by IFP MP Mr. Alfred Mwango. He said because of the Labour Relations Act that the IFP strenuously opposed, and of the political arrangement between the ruling party and COSATU, trade unions are now part of government, part of management, and part of the ownership of mines.
How can we possibly think that they can represent the interests of workers and that workers can legitimately feel protected by those who sit on the armchairs of government, in the shareholders' meetings of their industrial opponents, and in the boardrooms of the employers against which they are advancing their claims? It is absurd, indeed. It is unnatural, and it is bound to lead segments of workers into despair, extremism, and radical actions. Given enough time, the failure of trade unions to do their job has ushered in the present climate of lawlessness, violence, and rebellion. We need to redress the entire system by reforming the Labor Relations Act.
The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources, Fred Gona, said the inquiry into the mining crisis should begin with the implementation of the mining charter by the mining industry. He said critical interventions need to be made to transform the lives of the miners and their communities in the immediate surrounding areas. Gona said the salaries of mine workers require serious attention.
In the gold sector, the average salary earnings is 4,222 rand a month. In the coal sector, the average earnings of a general worker is 4,852, and in diamond sector, the average earnings is 6,540. The platinum sector, the average earning is 5,396 per month. Therefore, that gives you the average industry earning levels to put them to 5,252 rand. Meanwhile, the average earning level of CEOs is 20,183,433 rand. As a further illustration of this point, it doesn't matter whether net or gross, but you can look at disparities that we are pointing out here. As a further illustration of this point, the Lonmin rock drill operator, after the negotiations, earn a mere 11,078 rand a month. This translates to 132,936 rand per annum, compared, listen very carefully, to a whopping 17 million rand received by the CEO only in year 2011. We can further demonstrate to you that the CEO of Anglo-American Platinum earned in 2011 21.5 million rand, 1 year. The CEO of Anglo Gold Ashanti in 2011 earned 27.8 million rand. Goldfields CEO earned 37.7 million rand. This is seriously obscene.
But for DA parliamentary leader Lindiwe Mazibuko, the crisis in the mining industry is as a result of leadership failure on a massive scale from the president downwards.
And we have to be honest with ourselves, Mr. Speaker, this parliament failed as well. The truth is that the tragedy at Lonmin Mine exposed far more than its proximate cause of union unrest. It also revealed the raw tissues of a broken society. Ours is a president, after all, who craftily announces that his cabinet salaries will be temporarily frozen in response to the current crisis, and yet refuses to halt the 250 million rand upgrade of his private home. This is the time to speak the truth boldly and plainly, Mr. Speaker. Our president's lack of moral urgency is a blot on the conscience of South Africa.
Alfred Khanare of COPE had an issue with huge salaries earned by shareholders and directors in the mining industry.
When this happens and the government does not do anything to enforce the law, we have no reason not to believe that we are now in the animal farm, where others are more equal than others. When mine workers see Cynthia Carroll, the recently resigned CEO of Anglo-American, get paid just more than 22 million rand for being the boss, which is an increase of 38%. As if this is not enough, she gets 850,000 rand for just being a non-executive director of BP. To add salt to injury, she then gets 770,000 rand from Amplus as a non-executive director. In the midst of this display of crass materialism, we are told that the workers' demand is outrageous.
The Freedom Front Plus ruffled some feathers in the ruling party when it made reference to ANC leaders who use taxpayers' money for their personal benefit.
I want to start with the honourable member from the ANC complaining about the huge salaries of the CEOs in the mining industry, which is justifiable. But I want to say to that honourable member from the ANC, at least there's one difference. In the mining sector, the CEOs pay for their own houses. They don't use 250 million from the taxpayer money to build a house for the CEO of the ANC. That's a big difference.
I must say I'm disappointed by the last speaker, who is, according to me, a very important leader in his party. To say that it's justifiable that other people should earn millions when the African laborers are earning something that cannot be compared with what they earn, it's really ridiculous. I must say I'm really disappointed, particularly if it comes from a person who is a beneficiary, who was a beneficiary of the whole system.
Agbare Speaker, punt van orde.
There's a point of order.
Agbare Speaker,
Yes, sir.
ek wil weet of dit toelaatbaar en binne die reëls is dat 'n spreker presies die teenoorgestelde as wat 'n spreker gesê het, wil sê dat dit gesê is. Ek het gesê dit is justifiable to complain about it. Lyk my die agbare lid verstaan nie en ek wil weet of dit aanvaarbaar is.
That is not a point of order.
Yeah, thank you very much. Proceed. It's a point of debate, but it's noted. Proceed, on member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'd like to invite Honorable Groenewald to listen to a song composed by Hugh Masekela, Stimela, which talks about the conditions that mine workers found themselves in the past. And that song is even relevant up to today, because the compounds, the compound system, the food that workers are eating, it's really out of this world. It's actually unimaginable.
Well, it's time for a break. When we return, President Jacob Zuma calls on traditional leaders to prioritize education and to engage the controversial traditional courts bill. Don't go away.